Hello, this is Bonnie from Lavinia World, and today I'm going to show you how to use this gorgeous stencil. And I have, we're going to do something a little bit different than what you would normally do for just doing this as a background stencil. I actually cut these pieces out, and we're going to use them on a card in a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I created this stencil, and then in the end I'll show you what you can do. Okay, this stencil is called Pods, and it's ST011. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Distress Oxide like I do lots of times to start my base. And this one is old paper. And it makes a great background for these, for this stencil, this particular stencil. I'm thinking of it kind of like a tree look, or it could be anything. I mean, anything. So anyway, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and put this all over the back, and and then let that dry. Okay, so once that has dried, you go ahead, and I am using washi tape, and I am taping that down, and I have this piece underneath. I did cut a piece that was about the size of this stencil, even though I probably don't need the whole stencil. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the darker color of the two greens, and the two greens that I am using, Distress Oxide, is Evergreen Bough, and Cracked Pistachio. I'm going to use the dark color first. And it's very similar to a video that I've already done using a sweet poppy stencil. I'm going to put the darker color on the bottom of each one of these. I'm just going to show you one, and then I'm going to fast forward it so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to complete one, and then I'm going to do the whole thing and fast forward it. So that's that one. And then at the top, I'm going to come in with this cracked pistachio, and just come down from the top. And that is going to make that basic design color. And that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to do that for all of them. And I'll do that, and I speed that up for you. Okay, so I've got got that all finished, but in order to define the outline, I still need to have some color on top of this because it's a little bit light, but I needed that color because I liked how it showed through this background. So I have chosen 3 colors for the background, and that is Faded Jeans, Blueprint Sketch, and Chipped Sapphire. And I'm going to do that as a graduating thing, if you want to call it, gradual thing. So Faded Jeans comes first. And I'm going to start that at the bottom. I consider this at the bottom. And I am just slightly going over what I just did. It will show up. And that's okay, because that was the design I'm doing. But I'm mostly just trying to focus on where I put that old paper ink. And I'm going up about 1/3 of the way. Okay, and then the next color is going to be the Blueprint Sketch. This doesn't take very long, so I'm not going to fast forward it. You can see this is a little bit more vibrant. Now this design could be used on anything. I could just use it as is and put it like on a journal cover and then add anything to the top. But in this case, I am just really going for the special pieces. And Chipped Sapphire is last. I'm going to flip this around. It's easier for me to do it on this side. I think it moved just a tad bit. Hold on. Oh, yeah. How did that do that? Oh, the paper underneath moved. And that happens if I didn't tape it down. And it will be all a little bit blurred if I don't line that up. Okay. Okay. I should have taped that paper down. I thought I had it when I did the washi tape, but it just looks like I didn't. All right, so there's not much of that left up there anyway. Okay, so now there would be, let's see if we did that right. I'm going to lift up the one side and take a peek. Yes, that will work fine for what I'm going for today. Okay, so that's the design. The next thing, like I said, I did, you could just use this like it is. I think it's beautiful. It makes a gorgeous backdrop for anything that you can think of, like using what you would use for a paper, a design paper. So the next thing that I do is I look at it and I decide what am I going to do with certain pieces, and that's when I came in and decided I'm going to make these into ornaments. And so I have to flip this around this way, and you can see that. You can just cut those pieces out right there, and you will have really pretty ornaments. You will need to add some of the toppers, the metal toppers to that. And then the other thing I did is flipped it back around the other way, and I'm going to use these as trees. And those are going to be going on cards. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to get that together, and I'm going to make those into cards. Okay, so we've got that part done, and I'm going to show you what I decided to do. In fact, I think when I did it, we did it this way. So I turned this around and decided I wanted these pieces right here. And those pieces, not that I can't use this whole thing, because I'm going to use all the pieces that are on here, but not for this video. I'm going to use just this part for right now. And I am also going to be using another stencil from Lavinia, and this one is Laurel, and it's ST008. And I'm also going to be using this, and it is called a Zen Border, and it's LAV366. And I thought this was perfect because of what I wanted to do. It looks like snowflakes to me. So that is why I thought that was perfect. So the first thing that I did, and I've already done this ahead of time, you've seen me do this at the beginning when I made the stencil, is I used the pumice stone, and I just rubbed that across this entire piece of paper. This is going to be my card base. And then the next thing I wanted to show you is actually what we're going to be making. And that is this. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to go ahead and get that look. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to stamp the Zen Border at the bottom of this piece of paper. This is cut at 5 inches square. And I'm just going to be stamping at the bottom. And this stamp actually fits perfectly for the bottom here. And you can line that up any way you want. It's actually smaller. The paper's smaller. So then the next thing I did was I used the VersaFine Clair Morning Mist, and I stamped that. But the next thing I did to get that gorgeous silver was I used Nuvo Fine, I'll show you that in a minute, Fine Embossing Powder. Let me tape, I can't take that part down, but I can this. Okay. And the last time when I did that first one that I showed you, I did this twice. Yep. So I really don't know how I've seen a lot of people not use these platforms. I do not know how they do that unless they have really, really, really good juicy ink pads, and that could very well be. That one spot right there just doesn't want to, need a little bit more. I am going to be putting embossing powder on top of this, and usually that takes care of this issue anyway, but that's okay. I just like it to be as solid as I can get it, and it usually takes me 2 or 3 passes. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, like I said, I'm going to be embossing this. And here's the, I don't know if you can see that with that glare, but this is the fine embossing powder. And it is the Classic Silver. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got that on. I just wanted you to see that. It's just such a gorgeous, gorgeous embossing powder. And it is just, I don't know, it just is really, really nice. So the next thing I did was I got out the stencil and I lined that up. So get something out of my way, hold on. I lined that up with the bottom right where that top of the Zen Border was, and I pushed that down, lined that right up with the top of that, and then put it down on each side. And I'm just using the pumice stone again. I'm just going to be adding it a little bit harder, not too soft, but not too hard either. I just want a little bit of an imprint. I don't want it to be really, I want it to be more subtle, not like the focal point, like when we did the first one when I used the dark colors to really make it pop. This one, I don't want it to pop. I just want it to be the background. And this one works really well. You got to remember too, these pieces, really beautiful, but they do wiggle. And again, this doesn't matter so much for what I'm doing because it doesn't have to be a perfect background. I just want it subtle. And you'll see what I mean when I pull it off. And I do always peek before I take it completely off. But because I already did that first one, I kind of know the color or how deep I want to make it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and peek. Yes, you can see that's like how we want it. So then I go ahead and just take that off. And that's the design we have on the back. It's just pretty just by itself. I mean, you could put anything on here. It just makes a really pretty background. So the next thing that I did is then I worked on the ornaments. And that I had already cut these out like I had showed you. And what I needed, although I do have it in my stash, I do have ornament tops like these. I do have those, but I decided there might be people out there that do not have them. So I'm going to make my own. And I'm using a piece of cardstock that is a foil cardstock. If you don't have this, aluminum foil works great, and you can do that as well. Now I've already cut this one side, and I'd probably normally just go ahead and use it, but because I wanted to show you what I did, I have these old Fisker paper edgers. Now you probably can use any of your dies if you want to, or just do your own zigzag pattern. Now I want to go this way because I wanted those designs to be going down. So I just basically cut across this, and that's going to be the edges of those ornament tops. Now to get that little bit of a crinkle look, I went ahead and pulled out, whoops, making music. I went ahead and pulled out my score. And all I did was I just put that on there, and I went in every single little groove. And I just scored the whole thing, not knowing for sure how much I needed. But basically this piece is about, as you can see, 2 inches. I'm going to flip that around and get the other side. Okay, so now we have our indentations in there, as you can see. And I'll bring those ornaments back over. Each one I did, it was a little bit different. I can tell you this piece, I wanted to tell you this is probably a little bit more than a 1/2 inch, but I do cut it back. I always like to have a little bit more than what I need, because I can always, I'd rather have more because I could always take it away, but once I take it away, obviously I can't add more. Okay, so I'm going to do this top one first. I still think that's too long, but we'll trim that back. I'm going to pull that down a little bit closer for you. I want you to really see what I'm doing. Okay, I can't see it as well, but yeah, so I try to measure it so that it goes over to this, over the side of it, and then just a little bit, and I really can't see this at all. Okay, so that's about where I want it, is right there. So I just trim that back, and that's going to be setting right there on top. Again, this is a little bit wider than what I want it to be, so I'm trimming it back even further in terms of the height. Okay? So that's going to be, it'll probably go up a little bit higher. So that's going to be one of the 3. Now what I decided once I did this, I decided I wanted to tuck the other one under here, because technically it would go underneath here. So what I did, I'm going to pull you back up again here a minute, and I'm going to cut this one right off, because it's the only way I can get that underneath. Okay, and then I trim this back. And in fact, what I did for every one of these, they had long pieces. I just trimmed them back because I wanted them to be underneath each one of these pieces that I'm making. I wanted them to be hidden. So let's go ahead and finish these off. You can see what I did. And I'm just going to cut that. It's going to pretty much be hidden. And then, like I said, what I did with the other one is I trimmed it back that way also. And that's going to work out fine. Okay, so that's that one. I've got two. I need the third one. And again, I just do the same concept. Now, if you don't happen to have one of these scissors, because they are old now, the edge scissors, like I said, you could really use any die, or you could just zigzag it, you know, cut it in and out with a zig, you know, just in and out pattern, or just leave it straight. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. And if you wanted to get really creative, you could even use a little piece of wire, make it have that little circle at the top. Okay, so now I've got all three pieces. The next thing I did is I took my little bit of glue and I just dabbed a little bit of glue right there. Okay, and this is the one I used. And that goes right there. And if I find some reason that I think it's too big or whatever, I just trim it back even on there. That doesn't look as straight as I'd like it to be. Okay. So that's the first one. And then we've got, whoops, that's in the way. We've got this one and this one. And I could very well have picked the wrong one for the wrong spot, but they both work. Okay. All right. So we've got those all three put together the way I want them. So the next thing I did, and make sure I haven't forgotten anything, is I used double-sided tape on the back of each one of these. And for this one, because I want it to stand up higher than these two, I double up. And this is how I double up. I just put two pieces on top of each other. I want the depth. Now, some people might not want the depth if they're concerned about putting these in the mail, then don't double up. Now I need to measure this to see where it is it needs to go in comparison to this one. This one is going to be going up at the top, flush with the top, but I have to make sure I have enough space over at this side. So I'm scooching that over just a bit. And it's going to end up going like that. So I'm going to keep this one here because I know where that's going to go, so I can put this one back. Okay. I'm kind of matching up that point too. It can overlap the top of that ornament cap, and it's just going to touch there. Now you can see how that's raised up just a little bit, so I can put, so the deal is you could actually put nothing on the back of these. You could just glue those straight down and then just use the regular double-sided tape and not double up like I did. But I like the dimension, so I doubled up. There's a lot more things you could do. I would love to see if you guys give this a try. Some of the extra things you could do. I can see color being put on top of this so that the background has a different, you know, instead of it being white back there. Or I can see some sort of glitter on here. I could see glitter on the edges of these ornaments. I think that would be cool. Okay, so I'm just trying to line that up. Okay, so basically that is the base layer for the card. I'll probably put like a frame like around it. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, but I always take a picture at the beginning. You'll be able to see what I ended up finishing, how I finished it up. But I wanted you to see how that stencil, which I think is a really awesome stencil, can be used in different ways. Now, one other thing I want you to know is I have several other ideas to use that stencil for. And one of them is, like I told you, I cut out 2 more pieces. So what I want to tell you is I'm going to make yet another video, because this one's already long enough, using these and some of the pieces that are left. So that video will be coming up next week. And if you watch this in the future, just try to look for something that has something to do with stencil trees, because I'll call this stencil trees. And this will be stencil ornaments. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and give this a try. It's really fun. And I'd love to see what you make. Remember our DT share videos throughout the week, and I'd love for you to stop by to see what everybody's making, and please share this and subscribe. And all the supplies that I showed you are at laviniaworld.com, and I think that's it. Thanks for stopping by.